What's going on, guys? Welcome back to getting the work done. We're going to get some work done today. We're going through Job 2. What I titled this devotion is Satan's Methods, Godly Relationships, and Friendship Amidst Tragedy. I am still sick, so please, forgive me if there's a lot of coughing in this one, but hopefully this one's shorter than last night's or yesterday's. It's pretty late, so I might go a little quicker, but we got a great chapter, a lot to break down. Let's get started. Chapter 2 overview. So the same thing happens in chapter 1 with Satan and the angels meeting. It says that on another day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord. Satan's there. Satan, after failing to get Job to sin, explains that it was because of Job wasn't personally affected directly or physically. And then Satan gets permission, and Job gets painful sores all over. Like these sores that obviously hurt a lot, changes his physical appearance, we see later in the chapter. So they were clearly very bad. Job's wife tells him to curse God, yet Job still refuses. And then the chapter closes with Job's friends sitting with him in his suffering for 7 days. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to be coughing here, so. Okay, so trying to understand God, verses 1 and 2. Please check out my video yesterday. It's a longer one, but we go over this very detailed. God has got some strange things here, but the big question, again, in this chapter that pops up is, why is God allowing Satan in his presence? You're allowing an evil entity, the opposite of you, into your presence. Why do angelic beings who have turned to evil have the option to be with God and in his presence? The question I truly have been reflecting on a lot. I don't have a good answer. I think the potential of it protecting free will, and just kind of, obviously there's a reason for it. But unless you're God, it's hard to know this one. It's hard to come up with a human answer that makes a lot of sense. Other than Satan isn't a fallen angel, and angels are just a step above humans. Well, a lot of step above humans. So, the right to go to this meeting could just be the fact that they are some higher being, which I think raises some interesting questions. You know, you got some religions that believe in multiple gods, and it's like, well, theoretically they could be multiple angels that they're worshiping. Like Greek mythology, I just think, well, if you're worshiping Zeus, what if that's just an angel? Because like I said yesterday, we see Satan control wind. Today we'll see Satan be very powerful with causing these sores to pop up on Job. So clearly these angelic creatures are very powerful. Let's get to understanding God part 2. Why does God bring up Job to Satan here? I think we're getting more clarity on why God is doing this. It says, verse 3, Lord, sorry, this cough's annoying. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. Interesting wording. You incited me against him. It basically saying you tried to create this divide between us. You tried to, you're trying to create tension, saying, between us. And I think the important thing is that God recognizes that he is easily the one to be blamed. If you're just viewing this from a human perspective, God is allowing it. We talked about that yesterday. Please go watch yesterday. I had a great conversation about how the reason that this is a problem is because of God's omnibenevolence, and how it's just confusing why God bringing him up, but we see that he is blameless and pure, a man who fears God, and he still maintains his integrity. I think the point God's really trying to hammer here is saying there's nothing you can do against followers of me. You can try to strike them all you want. You can do whatever you want. You have all this power. Leave them alone, please, Satan, is what God's essentially saying. Leave my followers. Let the people. Here's the thing that's interesting is it's like, oh, like Satan, you need Satan to have evil. You don't. There's a good chance that Adam and Eve eventually eat from the tree without Satan tempting them. Satan makes life a lot harder, but he also perhaps makes our salvation a lot easier because God is recognizing that there's an angel who is not working the way that God intended angels to work, and he's rebelling against God, and God's like, yo, I see what this creature is doing to you. I see what this being is doing to you, and I see you choosing me over him. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. Choose God every day with all your with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. If you can do that, if you can go to bed even after you've sinned, you're doing a great thing. And here's the important thing. There's a lot to talk about Job, and I'm not going to get into it tonight, but just look at Job's character throughout this book, and I think you'll see just how we should really deal with tragedy, because it's remarkable. But with putting the target on Job's back, I don't think God's doing that. I think God's trying to show Satan that just let these people either choose evil or let them choose good. Let them choose me. If they don't choose me, they're going to you anyway. I think is all God's trying to show Satan and how angels work. Verses 4-5. The only thing that changes is that Satan says, here's the verses. Skin for skin, Satan replied, a man will give all he has for his own life. But stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and your bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. Here we see Satan wants us to think all relationships in our life are fake and non-authentic. He feeds off doubt and fear. Once again, same point from yesterday. It's true here. It's worth keeping in because that's all Satan's trying to bring up to God, is that this isn't a legit relationship. This isn't true. This isn't genuine. And Satan wants to do that with us very, very clearly. He wants to do that with us. And I just pray that everyone recognizes that all Satan wants to do is get you to think that you can't trust anyone or anything. But there is valid points by saying about faith in God. Selfishness. That's today's argument. This is so true. I mean, I think about this with myself. Self-preservation is one of the worst human characteristics that we have because we worry about ourselves instead of others. And I've struggled with the idea of self-love a lot because I think we're called to love others above ourselves. And I think if everyone were doing that, then we would be loving ourselves, because if you can care for someone else, if someone else is pouring into you, you're pouring into them, you'll be fine. You're getting love, you're getting comfort, you're getting everything you need. But unfortunately, people don't do that now. I think I've been blessed with the unique fact that my friends, I can say, do this. I think I'm confident my two best friends would die for me. I'm confident that a lot of people around me, I think, would be willing to die for me if I was in harm's way and they were to. I think they would take the bullet. I really do, and I know I would do that for them. So, and I think that's a beautiful thing when you found in a relationship is someone who will legit take the bullet for you. Your wife taking a bullet for you. You taking a bullet for your wife. There is nothing more magical and entrancing than a person who is able to lay down their life for another person, which is why it's so beautiful what Jesus did for us on the cross. And I just think that's what we miss so much. He literally took a bullet for all of us, people that he doesn't know. And it's just crazy to think about. Anyway, Satan directly tries to get God to avoid omnibenevolence. Please go watch yesterday's video. Omnibenevolence is not going to be covered in this one, but Satan says, stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones. This same pattern from yesterday where we see that Satan wants to get God to physically act and do evil, which would break all goodness. Satan is the only active angel. All other angels listen to commands from God. Once again, Satan needs permission here, so in a way he is listening to God. It's different for a lot of reasons, because no other angel is going on earth. That's the big discrepancy there. And angels are clearly very powerful. I say verse 7 because here's what it says. So here's verse 7. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. So Satan now can cause sores on your body, which means he can cause you to become sick. So I just want people to recognize how powerful Satan is, because we don't give him enough credit. God is very much stronger than Satan. The Holy Spirit is stronger than Satan. But we as human beings are not stronger than Satan. I'm just saying that purely off the basis of most of us will never be able to perform miracles of changing the weather. Most of us will not be able to cause sores on other people's body or to heal those. But I want us to also recognize that just like Satan's doing all these evil things, angels can do the exact opposite. God and angels, either or, they can heal these bruises and painful sores that Job gets. They can heal that. We see Jesus, just look at Jesus, all the miracles he performs, all the things he's in control of. So is every angel that can do a lot of very powerful things. If Satan can control wind, so can all the angels who are followers of Christ still. That's my point. Or in God's presence and remain in his presence. God's involvement, verse 6. God protects his character wisely. Satan basically asks God for permission to do what he wants to Job, and he says, very well, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life. So once again, we see God preserving Job. Is allowing evil to happen mean God is directly involved or not? We're not going to debate today. We did that yesterday. Please go watch if you're interested in, is allowing something to happen evil or bad. Very tough conversation, but we dive into that yesterday. Once again, so much content into what this story is about is yesterday. Relationships should point us to God. Here we go, verses 9 to 10. Let me read it real quick. His wife said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." He replied, "You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Very important here is that picking a spouse that will point you to God is like picking one of the finest gemstones in the world. If your significant other cares for you so much that they will point you to God in any situation, then your life will be easy. Unfortunately, Job's wife causes more temptation and trouble to Job. His wife essentially deemed death to be better. There's a lot of things to go into in this chapter, or these two verses specifically, because you can make a whole message off of these two verses alone. But the wife of Job reacts out of pure concern for Job and his well-being. I just feel like if you're reading this and you're like, whoa, she's saying to curse God and die. And it'd be like, just put yourself in the situation. Imagine the girl you care about the most, or your significant other is just got these sores all over their body that's deforming their face, literal blisters. You've seen him lose all his kids. You're at a low point yourself, so she's at a low point, and you're watching your person slowly die, essentially. And she's saying, just curse him and just let it just die. But, and I just think that shows that, like, Job is such a strong man in his faith, but also his wife reacts completely normal. And that's the point I want to make. Villainizing Job's wife here is not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make an example of how we should respond as spouses to one another, and just how we should treat brothers and sisters in Christ in general. Often death is probably the easier option than life. As a person who's dealt with depression, it's so easy to want an out, and the out that Job's wife is suggesting is logical and it's true. It's gonna get worse, I believe, a lot worse. And for him to leave here, he could have said, yeah, I'm done, I'll curse God and I'll die. And he doesn't, which is just remarkable, because as we'll see later, his friends literally cannot recognize him. And I think it's to show us that in all situations, pursuing life will reward you at some point. God will reward you at some point. Whenever you're in the lows, what would the highs be without those lows? And what is God working behind the scenes that you're not seeing? Because God is working behind the scenes in Job. Job is going to get blessed later. We just have to wait for it. Sometimes you have to wait for blessings to occur. Job calls her a foolish woman because she is steering him away from God. He says, you are talking like a foolish woman. He doesn't call her a foolish woman, which, I mean, he still roasts her, I'm not going to lie. But he's saying that you were talking like a foolish woman. Like, he's basically saying, hey, wife, I picked you because you were different and you were set apart and you had this passion for God. And now you're acting like everyone else. And what I thought we had here was both of us pursuing God, and you're not doing that, and you're not pointing me to him right now. If your spouse points you away from God, if your friend points you away from God, you can correct them. Be like, yo, you're steering, this is not biblical. This is not what God will want me to do. Which I think is important. Because sometimes our friends want the best for us. They want us to be in a good place, in a good spot, mentally, physically, spiritually. And in some ways, sometimes they can say something that would be the easier option rather than the right option. You must point your significant other to Christ in all situations. This is just going off the fact that, once again, if you have a spouse that will point you to God in all things, their relationship would have limited problems. Arguments wouldn't be that hard. If your head can be focused as two people, both united on Christ, then you've got a recipe for success. Joe makes sure to point himself back to God as well as his wife, and he says, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? This is such a big line. We love God when we get good things. We love him so much for blessings. And we accept them. That's fine. Like, just like good things happening, they might not, like, God might not have specifically given you that wife. You had to do work for that. This is the whole thing. We have to do work for things. But we're fine when it works out, when we get blessed. We also have to take trouble when we do wrong, when Satan's working against us. Trouble will come, but so do so many good things. And we can't worship God as like he's some genie who is only there to bring us goodness. We can bring ourselves goodness as humans. We can bring ourselves sin and disaster and calamity. We accept the good that God gives us. We should also accept the trouble because it's for a purpose and God is working for good in all things. I think that's all I want to get into. Don't want to dive too deep. There was a lot I said there that was so good in my opinion. Find you a person, find friendships that'll point you to God and everything. How friends should respond to crisis. Here we're diving into specifically. We see a husband and wife with Job and his wife, and now we're going to see his friends here in verses 11 to 13. Their names are Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and they hear about the tragedies occurring to Job. They heard about all the troubles that had come upon him. They set out from their homes and met together by agreement and to go sympathize with him and comfort him. So they go out with the intent. When you go out to help someone in tragedy, your mind should be to comfort and to sympathize. So put yourself in their shoes, essentially, is what that's saying. This verse 12, when they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. There's nothing worse than seeing your friend at their lowest when they're the most hurt. When they are on the brink of death, which is what Job is here. He's in great pain from these sores. The lesson to take away is that being there for your brother or sister in Christ is all you need to do. They simply sat in silence. True friendship is being there for the person at their worst and or lowest and doing nothing but being there for them. It notes that they sit in silence for 7 days. That's how long it took to create the world, which I think is interesting. You see the number 7 a lot in the Bible. Having just being there for the person is all you need to do. And I say this because as friends, sometimes we make it more complicated than it needs to be. Sometimes we think we're not the best comforter. We're not the best assister. And all we need to do, even if you're not good, some people are better at comforting, some people are better at helping people through things. All you need to do if you're not good with helping people through tragedy, because it's hard to help someone through a tragedy, it really is. All you have to do is just be there with them. If they talk, they talk. If they don't, they don't. But you just being there for them shows them you care. And in so many situations, that's all people need, is to know that someone's looking out for them, that they're not in the fight alone with whatever they're dealing through. And the Bible is clearly showcasing this. It's clearly showing what good friendship is in tragedy. It's not, they're not going, Job, why is all this happening to you? What did you do? What was your sin? They're not trying to, sometimes bad things happen. It's not always a punishment from God. That's the whole story of Job. This is not punishment from God. This is just bad stuff happening because of Satan. And I truly, the message I want to get across is just be there for the person. You don't have to always offer a solution. It's not always a mistake. I've been told so many times I've gone through a really hard breakup, and I've been told like so many things about how solutions on how the relationship could have worked, how it could have the person already likely knows a way that they could have changed something, a way that they would have done the relationship differently, a way that they would have get out of whatever mishaps happening. But the point is not to pry into someone's trying to think of a word here. Not to pry at someone who's weak and going through a rough time. It's to meet them where they're at. Because, trust me, there will always be conversations where someone brings something up amidst tragedy. That's when the conversations start happening of working through things. And those verses, please go read them, 11 to 13 in Job 2. That's how you comfort your friend in tragedy. How Christians should respond to tragedy is verse 10 to 13. Go through this real quick. It's basically yesterday, if you want to see me dive into this. Job goes into a state of prayer. We don't see this as much in this chapter, but there's a slight gap where Job and his friends appear, and we can assume Job's in prayer during all this. In this fact that we see, you are talking like a foolish woman, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? It shows that Job's been in prayer. Should we accept good from God and not trouble? That's what I write here. Already talked about that. He still praises God. Probably shouldn't have that on my slides, honestly, because he doesn't do that here like he did yesterday. But yesterday we see him praise amidst tragedy. We don't see him say to praise God here. But he is still praising God by the way he acts. The Bible is very clear about Job not sinning. This one is, in all this, Job did not sin in what he said. The reason this is important is because it's not a sin to correct someone. It's not. If someone points you away from Christ, they're pointing you down the wrong path. That's what correcting is. He calls her a fool. You are acting like a foolish woman. Once again, if someone is acting foolish, you're telling them you are telling them the truth. I just think that it's important to know that part of holding people accountable and accountability is that it's okay. It's a way of love to show that a person, if a person's going off the tracks, why? It's not love if you're not pointing them back to God. Get them back here. Stop letting them go off every way. Correcting people is not a sin. That is what I mean by the Bible is very clear about Job not sinning. Okay. Conclusion. Job's foundation is incredible. Him continually pointing his wife to God even after she basically is helping tempt him. God is complicated. We still don't understand why he's allowing Satan to do this, especially when he knows Job's trust in him. Satan isn't complicated. He uses repetitive strategies. We see him use the same tactics in chapters 1 from chapter 2, trying to get God to do things, trying to prove that he's right when he's wrong. He wants doubt. He wants to create doubt. That's all Satan wants to do. Lessons to learn. How to respond to tragedy. Relationships that point to Christ in tragedy versus not. So we see an example of how relationship isn't pointing to Christ here. How to be a friend in tragedy. We covered. And then the questions are the omnibenevolence problem. Is God all good here? Still a big question you could debate in a wise evil allowed in God's presence. Okay, that's all we got. I'm sorry for the coughing. This one was 30 minutes long, a little shorter today. Hopefully I can get shorter tomorrow. Yeah, but that's what we got. Thank you guys for watching. We got some work done today. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate you all. Have a blessed day.